Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is going to be a special one.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at human connection. You sent over this episode of Heartbeat, celebrating human connection, and it's just full of these amazing stories that really get you thinking about, the impact we can have on each other just by being kind and being present.
Yeah, it really focuses on that presence element. It's not just sort of doing something nice for somebody, but really being there for them. And that subtle difference is something that I think we can really kind of dig into today.
Yeah, and they kick it off with this story about this guy, James, who sets up in a Portland cafe with this sign that just says, "Need to talk. I'm here to listen."
And, you think about a cafe, like that's such a kind of public space, usually associated with, getting your coffee and going about your day. But he's really kind of transformed it into this space for sharing stories and burdens and really opening up.
And they actually share this story about a woman named Sarah in the episode who was going through a really, really difficult time in her life, feeling just totally lost. And she came across James and his little setup there, and it was really a turning point for her.
What I thought was so powerful about that story is that, he doesn't try to offer her solutions or advice or anything like that. He just sits and he listens. And, in a world that's so focused on, trying to fix things immediately, I think that can be incredibly powerful just to have that space held for you.
Totally. And he was there every day. It wasn't just a one-time thing. So there's a consistency to his presence there, too, that I think really spoke to me.
It really makes you think about the ripple effects of something like that, right? He's not just impacting the people that he's talking to, he's impacting the feeling and the environment of the whole cafe, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So what resonated with you the most about that story?
I think for me, it's that commitment to just listening. Like we said, it's so rare to find that these days, so it's really inspiring to see someone who's dedicated their time to just being present with people in that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so let's move on to this totally different kind of presence. The episode talks about this couple, Hiro and Michiko, and they had this incredible love story that unfolded over decades through handwritten letters. Hiro was a sailor, so they spent a lot of time apart, and they would write these really detailed letters to each other.
Yeah, they really highlighted the sensory details of the letters, too, which I thought was fascinating, like the feel of the paper. And they even talk about how Hiro would weave little sketches into his letters. You could almost smell Michiko's perfume on the pages. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to describe that tangible connection they had through these letters.
It's like they created their own world within those letters.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't just recounting events. They were sharing their thoughts and their dreams and fears, and every detail felt so intentional, so present.
And it really makes you think about how different that is from the way we communicate today, right?
Yeah.
Like with texting and instant messaging, everything is so quick and fleeting, but there's something about that slowness, that deliberateness of letter writing that I think forces you to be more present with the person you're communicating with.
For sure. I mean, in today's world, it's so easy to just fire off a quick text or email without really thinking about it too much. But with a letter, you have to really slow down and consider your words. And it's a much more thoughtful way of communicating.
Yeah, and I think in a world of emojis and, abbreviations and all of that, we might be losing something by choosing speed over substance in our communication. So it's really interesting to think about that.
Totally. And I don't know about you, but that story really makes me want to put down my phone and pick up a pen and just write someone a letter.
Yeah, it's like a lost art that I think we could all benefit from rediscovering.
Okay, so get ready for this next story, because this one really got to me. We were talking about Gogo Namsa, the hugging grandma of Johannesburg. She became this surrogate grandmother to all these children who were orphaned by the AIDS epidemic. And her hugs weren't just gestures of comfort, they were like lifelines.
I know. And they tell this one story in the episode about this young boy named Thabo who had lost his entire family. And he was just so withdrawn and full of grief. And Gogo Namso, without saying a word, just enveloped him in this huge hug. And it was like she was holding all of his pain and fear in that embrace.
And what's amazing is that the episode talks about how that hug transformed him. He started to smile again. He started to open up. And it's like that hug just broke through all of that grief and trauma and allowed him to start to heal.
It really speaks to the power of physical touch, especially in times of loss.
Mm-hmm.
We often think about words as being the most important way to comfort someone, but sometimes just a simple hug can be so much more powerful.
It's like a hug can transcend language, right?
Yeah.
It's this universal expression of love and support. And it can communicate so much more than words ever could.
And it's not just a feeling. There's actually a scientific basis for this Physical touch releases oxytocin, which is often called the love hormone, and it's been shown to reduce stress and promote feelings of trust and connection, and even aid in physical healing.
Wow. So there's like a biological reason why Gogo Nomsa's hugs were so powerful. That's incredible.
It really is, and it makes you think about how we can incorporate more meaningful touch into our own lives, right? Especially in a world that can feel increasingly distant and disconnected.
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe it's just a hug for a friend who's going through a tough time, or holding a loved one's hand a little longer than usual, or even just a pat on the back to show support.
Yeah.
And it's about remembering that touch is a powerful language of connection and compassion. Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're not just minds, we're also bodies, and that physical connection is just as important as emotional connection. Speaking of touch and connection, this episode is just full of these little anecdotes that really highlight the power of presence, like,
Right.
these seemingly small things that can have such a big impact.
Totally. And there was that story about the pianist of the platform. That one really got to me too. This homeless man who would play this incredible music on a public piano in this busy train station.
And it's like he transforms this ordinary space into this concert hall, and suddenly he's not just invisible anymore. People are stopping and listening and connecting with him through his music.
It's like this reminder that everyone has something to offer, right? Like everyone has their own unique gift. And sometimes all it takes is the right platform, the right opportunity for that gift to be shared with the world.
Exactly. And then there's that story about the spaghetti dinner fundraiser where this whole town rallied around this couple who had lost their home in a fire. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and they didn't just like donate money. They cooked and served and created this whole sense of community around this couple, showing them that they weren't alone in this really difficult time.
It's such a beautiful example of the power of collective action, right? Like when we come together to support each other, it's like we all benefit.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the practical help, it's about the message it sends. That message of hope and resilience and the unwavering support of a community. It's really powerful.
Totally. And then there's that story about the Secret Santa, this businessman who would anonymously give away thousands of dollars every Christmas to families in need.
Oh, yeah, that one was amazing. And what I love about that story is that it didn't end when he passed away. His family kept the tradition going, and it even inspired other people to start their own Secret Santa initiatives. It's incredible.
It's like this ripple effect of generosity.
Yeah.
One act of kindness inspiring another and another. It's really heartwarming. And it shows you that even small acts of kindness can have such a huge impact. Speaking of which, that story about the kindness of strangers, that one really hit me hard. This single mom struggling to make ends meet, and she finds this envelope in her grocery bag.
With a note and enough money to get her through the week, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the money. It was about that feeling of being seen and supported.
Yeah.
Like someone out there cared enough to help.
It's like that act of kindness restored her faith in humanity, reminded her that she wasn't alone in her struggles.
Exactly. And then there's that story about the bike repairman's gift. This older man who built a bike from scratch for this young boy who couldn't afford one.
It's such a beautiful story about mentorship and intergenerational connection, right? Like recognizing the needs of others and stepping up to provide support and guidance.
It's like an investment in the future generation, showing them that they matter, that their dreams matter.
And it's not always about material things either. Sometimes the most valuable gifts are the ones that empower and inspire others to reach their full potential.
Yeah, for sure. As we're talking about all these stories, I'm really struck by how they all point to this fundamental human need for connection, for support, for belonging.
It's like a reminder that we're not meant to go through life alone. We need each other.
Totally. And these acts of kindness, these moments of presence, they're like the threads that weave us together, create this tapestry of human connection.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, what if we all approached every interaction, every encounter with that same spirit of generosity and compassion? What kind of world could we create?
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired right now. Like there's so much good in the world, and it's easy to forget that sometimes, with all the negativity that we're bombarded with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air on it. And I think what's so special about these stories is that they're not about, these grand, extraordinary gestures. It's the everyday acts of kindness that really make a difference.
Right. It's those little moments of presence, those genuine connections that we make with each other, whether it's a listening ear or a heartfelt letter or just a simple hug.
It's about realizing that we all have the capacity to make a positive impact. regardless of our circumstances or resources.
And it all comes back to that idea of presence, right? Like
Yeah.
really being there for each other in those moments that matter.
It's about shifting our focus from me to we, like thinking about the well-being of others and recognizing that we're all interconnected.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into heartbeats celebrating human connection, I think the big question is, what's one act of presence that you, our listener, can commit to this week?
What's one small gesture you can make to brighten someone's day? To make them feel seen and heard and valued.
Maybe it's offering a genuine compliment, or reaching out to someone who's feeling lonely, or just taking the time to really listen to a friend who's going through a tough time.
It doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. It's really about those small acts of kindness, those moments of connection that remind us of our shared humanity and, the power we all have to make a difference.
And who knows, maybe that one small act of kindness will inspire someone else to do the same, and it'll just create this ripple effect of positivity that spreads throughout the community.
So go out there, be present, be kind, and be the change you want to see in the world.
Thanks for joining us on this heartwarming journey, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.